don't need to be agile or need to be strong. It doesn't matter if your weapon is short or is long. If you want to be successful when you go into a fight, it's the point of balance that you need to get right. Hey friends, Lauren here again, and I wanted to do a little follow-up from the last video where we talked about, how heavy are all these things in my collection. What does a sword weigh? What do weapons weigh? And some armor bits and stuff. What's their mass? And one of the things I briefly mentioned was talking about point of balance, but I want to expand on that. Because I think that's something that, well, maybe we who are European martial artists obsess over a little bit too much. Yeah, the point of balance, center of gravity, the P.O.B, the COG, the pivot point. So you can see that this sword, which is 1,340 grams or 2.99 pounds, the balance is here. So half of the weight, half of its mass is close to my hands. Okay? Compare it with this 3-pound hand weight. And this feels slightly heavier when I hold it like this. But when I put it like that, now the sword feels heavier. So I figured we should talk about that, because a lot of people will pick up the sword and hold it out in front and say, oh, it feels heavy. And I say, hold it up. And they hold it up and they go, oh, it's not heavy. Nope. And that's because of where things balance. Okay? And I thought we would have a little talk. I'm just putting the weight down, and I don't want it to make too much noise. I thought we'd have a little talk about balance, because that's what the difference is between something being more dexterity, agility, finesse based, and something requiring a lot of strength. Where does that come in? Well, if the center of gravity, if that balance point is close to the hands for the sword, it is definitely not close to the hands for the mace. It is very far away. So I need to move the head of the mace with a lot more strength in order to get enough speed to generate energy that'll transfer into the target when I hit it. Whereas the sword, because of its design, is efficiently transferring that energy to an unarmored target in particular. And it's going to move very fast, so I'm using speed to generate the power, whereas opposed to mass to generate the power. So I think we could say that a sword, even a two-handed sword, even a great sword, that it moves around. That point of balance is close enough to the hands that makes the blade point very nimble. You can move it around easier. All of the manuals for big honkin' huge montante, spadone, zweihander, doppelhander, whatever we want to call it, it's all about a lot of movement. They are very nimble. Okay? We don't have manuals for mace, but we know that a mace is not a nimble weapon. It is I swing when I need to, and I don't twirl it around. It's heavy. It is top heavy. All that mass is concentrated far away from the hand. So we want to break down further, why is a sword a finesse weapon and why is a mace not, or a warhammer, or different things? Well, you need strength for certain things. We know you need strength for the longbow. You still need some strength. I mean, you're still moving around 1,340 grams of steel. And, if you're doing that for several minutes, you do need to develop a little bit of endurance for that. But you don't necessarily need to be strong. You just need to practice. And remember, using weapons of any type is a full body experience. I'm not fighting like that. I'm fighting with my entire body. If you've seen any of my videos, you know there's footwork involved. My whole body is moving. Everything is going. All that energy is coming from the legs, up through the body, down through the hands, and then I am pulling with one hand and pushing with the other. I am delivering that energy into the target. So it's a full motion thing. So any kind of fighting really does need some kind of agility, some kind of dexterity to stay on your feet while you do this. If you're going to trip over your own 2 feet, that's how it is, you're probably not going to be very effective fighting. But, of course, in games, you need to have balance. I get that. You don't want every thief being able to pick up the biggest sword around and have a +4 bonus to hit. or however the stats transfer in your games. But at the same time, we have to acknowledge that if you're trained in how to use these, then it is all about your agility, your dexterity, your finesse. But then you come down to the whole idea of weapon proficiencies and making decisions. Now, of course, if I'm fighting unarmored, yes, if I'm fighting armored where I'm holding halfway up the sword, and there's a video in the playlist, if you go looking for it, you can find the harness effect in video, the armored fighting with the sword, and you fight very differently, and you do need more strength in order to get through those less protected gaps in the armor, because you're not going to put this through the breastplate, you're not going to cut through it, you're not going to pierce through it, but you are going to be able to get into those gaps, and you can power through to do some damage. But it all depends on what you're trained to do with the sword and how you fight. And just as a last little bit, because to compare and contrast, let's look at the rapier really quick. Because the point of balance is fairly close to the hand. Here we go. So my hand goes here, forward on this ring. A lot of metal in this. It isn't light. And it's going to feel pretty heavy as you fence with it. And it's really going to do a number on your forearm. It's going to be pretty tired. So you got to pace yourself as you train up to it. And eventually you get good at it again. But that balance is close to the hand so that the point is very nimble. And so in a lot of games, this will be the finesse weapon. Despite the fact that this particular design is 17th century and this design is 15th century, but hey, it's a game. We smush all the things together. It's about having fun. I get that, so I don't fuss too much about it. But again, my hand is here, and this is about 6 or 7 centimeters in front, which is about the same as it was for this longsword. So they have similar points of balance. Oh. And you can fight with them in similar ways. Oh. So it really comes down to how you're trained and the design of the weapon, if it lets you do certain things. Quick conclusion. If you have a warrior in your game, they should get to choose the stat based on certain weapons that they could fight a finesse style with it, or they could fight a strength-based style with it. Training. So you could have a fast but not so strong warrior in your game, fighter, paladin, whatever it is. Or you could have one that's very strong and not as balanced, still have at least a decent number where you don't have a penalty, and away you go. But yeah, I just want to talk about that concept, point of balance. How we maneuver things is based on where the mass is distributed, and if it's closer to one end or the other end. If it's closer to our hands, it's fairly nimble and quick. If it's far away from our hands, it requires a lot more effort. And I thought that was just a little nice follow-up that we could have. Anyway, friends, the laptop will run out of battery soon, so I just want to remind you, subscribe, like, and of course comment, because comments are the most important part. They help shape the channel. What you want to see is what I can then go and make videos about. So let me know. And until then, when I come back with the next video based on your comments or whatever idea come up into my head, do remember to take care, stay safe, and keep on swinging.